Hi, this is Mr. West, Rossit's Moustache, and today I'm looking at this question about interpretation from the USA aspect of your GCSE. How far do you agree with this interpretation here, number 2? Basically, have a look at your work that you've got back from me. There'll be a number of targets maybe on there. Have a look through the video, find the targets, and then do what it says. Brilliant. Okay, so the first target revolves around how you could disagree with interpretation 2 using interpretation 1 as evidence, okay? So it's quite often in these you'll get given more than one interpretation, and then what you can do is use the other one as evidence to disprove or approve, disagree or agree with the interpretation of the question. So you can see here is a really nice example of a student who's done that, basically using how interpretation 1 in their answer for interpretation 2. So if you've got this one, pause the tape and try and incorporate interpretation 1 into your answer. Pause the tape now. Okay, so the second target focuses on the conclusion. Now, a number of you did this bottom point here, okay, where you actually wrote about what you thought, and you said, oh, it's terrible that they were treated in this way. But remember, the question is, how far do you agree with the interpretation, okay? So don't be saying about what you think about it. What your view is you must make sure your conclusion directly answers how much you agree or disagree with the interpretation. That's what the question's asking, not what you think about what's going on. Okay, so that's really important. So there's another target to do with linking, but this is a bit more specific, target 3. In order to disagree with the interpretation, you may wish to link Brown versus Topeka of 1954 with the events of Little Rock in 1957. Okay, and a good student could say, well, in the short term, maybe that's a fair description, but long term, look what happened in Little Rock. And you can see there's a nice little bit of an example here from the exemplar answer. So pause the tape and have a read of that and try and add that into your answer, trying to link together events in this period, okay? And particularly that last point there that really makes the point home, doesn't it? All right, so pause it, read it, add it to yours. So building on from the last target, what you could do in your conclusion is you could look at the long and short-term impact of the Brown versus Topeka decision. So look, here, overall in the short term, I strongly agree with interpretation 2, because although some schools in some states began to desegregate, by 1957 there were 300,000 black children attending non-segregated schools, but still 2.4 million black children have been educated in Jim Crow schools. So that tells you that a vast majority are still being segregated. However, look how it develops this conclusion. In the long term, I partially agree with the interpretation as open opposition became unacceptable and the Brown versus Topeka case had a positive impact on the civil rights movement. And without Brown versus Topeka, would we have had Little Rock? Would we have had the other things that came afterwards? So you can look at long and short term, and that'll develop your conclusion and develop your answer. So if you've got that target, have a look at it, add it in. Okay, another thing I've put down for number 5 here is you need to consistently, that's the word, consistently state how far you agree. So what I've done is I've looked at an exemplar answer here. And look, that's the opening paragraph. I partially agree with interpretation 2. Then the next paragraph. The main reasons I agree with interpretation 2 are that. However, I do not fully agree with interpretation 2. This is mainly because they all link together. They all come from the same line of reasoning. What some students have put is oh, I agree with interpretation 2. And then you've put, oh, I disagree with it. Well, which is it? Do you agree or do you disagree? So a good student picks something like partially agree or disagree to a large extent or agree to a large extent, but then you can do something in the other side. You don't want to say, oh, I disagree to a large, or I agree with to a large extent that this is the case. However, I disagree. Well, you can't disagree and agree to a large extent. So try and get some consistency in your answers, running right through the start of each paragraph. Again, always try and use your own evidence to explain whether you agree or disagree. So you could go, oh, well, I agree because actually it was terrible in the South. Well, okay, it was terrible. But can you look at these? These are from the exemplar answer. A couple of nice examples here, okay? We've already seen the bottom one, haven't we, in the other target there. But look, 450 laws were passed by Southern state legislators preventing the Brown decision being enforced. That's real evidence to back up and agree. If you agree with interpretation 2, you can use this to back up the interpretation 2. Real evidence. There's never any substitute for that, is there? So pause the tape, and put that evidence into your answer to back up what you're saying. All right, and the last target is about linking the events. So you can see here from the exemplar answer that I've picked out, look, linking it with the Montgomery bus boycott, the Dole test. Not many people mentioned that, but that did come in, didn't it, in terms of Brown versus Topeka and how it was used, and then obviously Little Rock. So pause the tape and try and improve your answer by linking the events in the civil rights campaign together, and that will develop your understanding of the interpretation. Okay, as I say, have a crack now. Green pen, let's make it happen.